Welcome to the Attractions Group Podcast, episode 15. I'm Ryan Sir, and with me, as always, is the man who puts but verify into trust but verify, Don Helbig. How you doing, Don?
I'm doing great. How about
I'm
you?
doing well. You know, it's been a little while since we recorded. We had some tech issues and stuff last week, so we do apologize. But hey, many of you guys that follow us on Twitter got a message from me about if you follow our YouTube channel, then we'll follow yours, that sort of thing. And that was awesome because I got a lot of messages back and really good support, and people were sharing their work with us on YouTube, which was awesome. And there's even a guy that said like, "Hey, you got to see this," and he sent me a link to a theme park uh, crossword puzzle. It's available on Amazon. I don't know. It's probably just called Theme Park Crossword Puzzle, so just look for that. But that looked like a pretty cool holiday gift for the enthusiast in your life. Don, how you feeling today?
Doing all right. Battling a little bit of a cold, I think, over this past weekend, but, it's going to happen this time of the year where it's, 75, 80 degrees one day and 62 the next. It's what you deal with in Southwest
Yeah,
Ohio.
unfortunately, it is. Well, anyway, let's get to it. So today we're going to have kind of an offshoot of a lot of the subject matter that we've had recently. In the past, we've talked about social media and we've talked about influencer marketing and we've talked about brand identities and so on. But today we're going to narrow it down a little bit more and we're going to talk about going live. So we're talking about particularly going live on the social media channels. Um, and with that, we put up a poll asking where you prefer to either go live or, um, where you consume your live activities and stuff. And most people chose YouTube. Did that surprise you, Don?
It did not surprise me because that's like TV. So, that's going to be the number one channel where people are going to want to go to watch video and also, live video. But it's not a fit for every situation that you'd want to go live in the attraction industry.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. There's, big opportunities. Obviously, a lot of parks are going live for ride announcements and stuff, which is pretty exciting. Um, so besides that, besides the obvious, what are some opportunities that parks have for live video streaming from a marketing standpoint?
Well, as you mentioned, yeah, like just as you mentioned, number one would definitely be, in park announcements for new attractions. Uh, that's gold, and that's where you would definitely want to be using YouTube for that. It's going to be a longer form type video. Those announcements are normally anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes, depending how much is involved with it. But other opportunities are if you have, live shows, you want to take people cooking demonstrations. I think would be really good, especially the way the culinary experience has been dialed up at parks across North America here. So I think something like that would be a great place to go live. Behind the scenes tours are great to do. You have different seasons uh, where that works, where you have your off season with the maintenance work that goes on in the shops. You can do lives in the spring as construction with new capital, first test rides, those kind of things. In the summer, if you have special events, another great opportunity to go live. In the fall, when you have your Halloween events, go live through some of the haunted attractions, the scare zones, go live in the makeup room where everybody's getting transformed into monsters. That's always fascinating for people to watch that process. So just so many opportunities to do it, but you really don't see a lot of it out there.
Why don't you do you think you see a lot of it out there? Do you think that it's just young, so people haven't seen the value in it yet?
I think is it's kind of like overwhelming. If somebody looks at like a Disney Parks live feed, they obviously have a lot of people, involved in that process. It's a big production, but they think that it has to be a big production, and it doesn't. You really can do it. It's just one person. All you need is like an iPhone to be able to do it. You just got to be able to check your connection and make sure that it's a strong one. But you don't need to do it that way, to where you're going to be intimidated by it. And I just think it just flies under the radar. It's great for engagement. It's something that after the fact, you save it on your channel, like Instagram. If you go live, you save it as a regular post. Those views are going to skyrocket. So tremendous opportunity out there. But I think have fun with it, take a chance, and do it. And I think everybody that would try that in the attractions industry would find that they're increasing engagement, and they're able to take their audience, their to places where they can't normally
Yeah.
go.
So what would be your preferred methods for going live? Like, do you prefer YouTube over Instagram, or is it situational, or how do you make that decision?
It's going to be situational, Ryan. If it's an announcement, it's going to be YouTube. If it's something that's like an 8 to 10 minute uh, type of live, Instagram would be where I would go there. If you're going to be up to 30 minutes, Facebook would be the option there for me. And then there are times, that Twitter can be a fit, but that would be more of the quick hit, those 2 to 3 minute type views that just kind of show someone like you're looking live at this part of the park or something. But yeah, Facebook, if you're doing something that's a little longer form, 20 to 30 minutes. Instagram, if you're trying to do those, 8 to 10 minute type things. And then there's TikTok. That's another one that's a good fit for that 8 to 10 minute kind of range.
Yeah, TikTok was just short video clips, but now they're trying to compete with the other big dogs, and
Your TikTok, your Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and then to a lesser extent, Twitter. Those are your options to really go live. And then there's also that debate, do you go vertical or horizontal? There's a lot of that's been something the last 4 or 5 years that have been discussed a lot. But, back when there was maybe 50, 60% were viewing your content on a mobile device, you probably wanted to go horizontal. But today, almost 90%, 87, 88% of people today, they're viewing everything on their phone and the way they hold their phone. So you want to go vertical. That's my opinion now. Every channel except for
yeah, it
YouTube.
seems like YouTube is more of a if you want to be quasi broadcasting. You mentioned earlier that it's like television, and I think that that's another
It is.
example of where you can do a little bit more with production quality and stuff like that if you wanted to. But I would also argue that at least with Instagram, it's kind of set up to go vertical anyway. If you did horizontal, it may not look right when it hit the end user.
Yeah, as somebody who's tried it horizontal, it doesn't work very well on Instagram. I did that about 6, 7 years ago, and it was just terrible with that. But also what you have to look at is if you're going to be stationary, that's where YouTube is really designed for. You can't really be roaming around too much with YouTube. You want to be kind of stable with that. Or Instagram, Facebook, you can move around TikTok, so you can be more mobile with that.
So you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to make a large production, that you can just use an iPhone, and I think that that might have been eye opening for some people who strayed away from it because they can't create the Channel 5 news or whatever. But
No, and you're also afraid of mistakes sometimes too. That's the thing when it's live. It's live. So if you say the wrong thing or something gets in the view, that people are hesitant with that because they can't control what's around them. Where you can if you're just kind of making just regular video feature that you're going to put out there in your channel. So that's something that also makes people a little bit hesitant, is just because it is live. But the rewards, I mean, they're great.
so would you how would you just control the controllables and take the risk, you think, when it comes to live? Like if you're doing a ride announcement, so that's definitely something that would be on the table for going live because you'd be reaching thousands more people. Um, there's just nothing you can do about somebody that's flipping the bird right in the middle of the crowd or anything, right?
No, and it's like TV going live, same kind of situation, where you just have to kind of look around your surroundings and hope that people, don't do something like that. But you also want to be, kind of away a little bit. You want to put yourself in a spot to maybe you're up a little, elevated a little bit, away from the midway level, so people, you know, aren't necessarily, getting in your way or cutting in front of your feed or even coming up to talk to you. If they know who you are, they're going to come up and just start a conversation with you while you're recording. So you want to be cognizant of that too and have a plan in place, have an objective. What are you trying to accomplish? That's another thing with it is, don't go live just to go live, but what are you trying to accomplish? What kind of story are you trying to tell? So you have to have all that in mind as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw, I remember when Dollywood was making their announcement this year. I was looking for their live feed, but as it turned out at the time, they hadn't gone live yet. Because there's always going to be a run up, and we'll talk about that. But I found a ton of feeds on YouTube of essentially the back of the person in front of their head. So I mean, obviously that's not the feed I wanted to watch. Ultimately, Dollywood had a good presentation and they had some sort of professional camera set up or whatever, but it was unobstructed. Um, so we mentioned, the different streaming platforms, and you said that it's situational. Um, Besides time, what other factors play into your decision to use one platform over another?
I think you also want to look at the audience, what you're going to be going live to do, what's going to be the feature there, the focus. Each channel has a different kind of demographic that's on there. Different people follow you for different reasons, so you want to keep that in mind too. So if you're doing something that's going to be more toward the thrill seekers and that, you can get away with it on more on Facebook. If it's going to be something that's going to be more geared toward the moms, parents, Instagram's probably a little bit better for that.
So you mentioned that you can go live with just a phone, but talk about other equipment that you've used to go live besides just an iPhone.
We've used regular DSL cameras to go live and had multiple camera angles when we've done different things. I've had an event where we were filming a parade, and we had multiple camera angles that we were able to pull off. That requires 2 or 3 people to be able to do that. Or if you're going to put graphics up, if you're going to put, you know, make sure that when somebody introduces themselves, their name and title, and that comes up there, more than one person for just that. If you're by yourself, it's just going to be kind of a native looking video.
What kind of software do you use to bring this all together?
Well, we did, things that I've done before is just going through a laptop, having the feed from your camera going into your laptop connected to YouTube and then being streamed out that way.
Okay, so you can do multiple camera angles and stuff with that. I suppose. I mean,
You
digital
can with that,
switcher, and
yes.
then obviously, I believe you guys have used the OBS software too, the Open Broadcasting System.
Correct.
That's what we use for this podcast. Full disclosure, but that's completely free. It takes a little bit to learn it, but we figured it out. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, it can't be that hard. If you and I have figured things out, Ryan, it cannot
Yeah,
be that hard.
definite.
But
Trust me, if he and I can do it,
really,
you
I
can.
just think,
Whoever you are out there.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. But it's really, I mean, you have one of these nowadays. I mean, it's just one of those. Just the opportunities are endless, and you go to any kind of a social media conference, and one of the different tracks, and that is always going to be going
Hmm.
live, and they're going to talk about going live on the different channels, and it's one of the most attended ones in any social media conference that you go to as well too. So a lot of people are encouraging it, but it's just one of those things that you just got to take that leap, go out and do it, and but have an objective though. Like I said, you just can't just don't walk out in your park and just start recording live. Just know what you're trying to accomplish, know exactly what's going to be coming into your view in terms of whatever, if it's a show or if it's a cooking demonstration, know where your chef's going to be going left or right or whatever they tend to do, so it looks polished, looks professional, but with the phones today, I mean, it comes off looking really, really good with the quality. A lot of them are 4K in that now, so no problem there with the quality of your video. But you also want to make sure you have a connection though, because that is, when you go on, if it says weak or okay, don't go live yet. Wait till you find a spot where you have a strong connection.
Yeah, and sometimes park Wi-Fi can be your friend. Although it seems like at every park that I've ever been to, park Wi-Fi covers 85% of the park. So I guess be conscious of that as well. But I mean, I guess 85% is a pretty good percentage anyway. So um, I would personally maybe walk around that section of the park and do a speed test before you go anywhere, just so you know what you're getting yourself into. So with that being said,
Yeah, and that's one of the things about roam. Yeah, when you're roaming though, that's another thing to be concerned about is when you're stationary and you know what your feed is, it's pretty much going to stay that way. If you start roaming and you're going to different areas of a park, that can be hit or miss, and you need to be careful with that too.
yeah, also I want to point out that we'll probably go into a little bit more with things that are spectacle, so ride announcements, parades, stuff like that. That are all good candidates for going live. But just the way with the laws of physics, if you are set up and you run a speed test and you go on cellular um, for a ride announcement, and then all of a sudden there's 3,000 more people there, all also going live, that's going to affect things too. So just be conscious of that. And same is true with Wi-Fi. The more people that are on it in one spot, the more it bogs it down. So you got to
Hmm.
be there for it. How often would you recommend going live? Is there too much? Is there too little?
Well, I mean, the opportunities are going to tell you how often you can go live, what you have going on. But I would say, maybe once or twice a month is a good frequency. So that would be like 12 times a year on each channel. Would be a nice range to do it with. But if you can just go, a couple times a month to start out and just pick the channel you're comfortable with and kind of build from there and just kind of test the waters with it and see what the engagement everything is for you and just get comfortable doing it, and then you'll want to do more and more. But you have to have something that's going to interest your audience too. You just can't do it to do it. That's what we keep talking about. Have an objective, something that people are going to want to see. They're going to want to stay with it the length of your video too. You don't want a lot of people opting out, a minute, 2 minutes into it just because it wasn't interesting. So something's got to be going on. Don't have a dead time there.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the opportunities are out there. Some of them obvious, some not as much, but you can create the opportunities. You mentioned, applying makeup to haunt actors and stuff. Just
Mhm.
spitball me some more ideas like that where you create the opportunity to go live.
Yeah, the thing I really like is, everybody's trying to promote the dining experience. How that's just kind of really, you know, just taken off across the industry. I think if you did something once a week with the chef or somebody else, a pastry chef, somebody like that, just starting it from scratch and just watching that process all the way through. I mean, think the Rachel Ray show. I mean, you can do that yourself at your park with your culinary team.
You know what? I just had an idea, and you or anybody else can steal it if you want. But how about this? So it seems like unless a new restaurant opens, the way that the consumer finds out, the potential guest finds out about new food items is a few days to weeks before the park opens, they release the menus very quietly. What about if they, like, once a week during the off season, if the chef was like, this is a new dish we're going to have in this restaurant, this is how we prepare it, and this is how it looks, like a little cooking show, maybe under 5 to 10 minutes or whatever. I think that would be kind of a cool idea, and it would keep people engaged in the off season.
Oh, definitely would. And I've seen that done at several different parks where they have done not only what's new, but also just food tasting, like where they create a lot of different ideas and they have the full time team that's year round there, and you know, testing out the food and grading the food, and they kind of go off of those opinions and what actually gets put out in the park sometimes. So those are always fun too, and I have seen that done live. So just a lot of opportunity there. But I think like that TV show kind of thing on YouTube with the
Hmm.
chefs. I think that's a perfect opportunity for parks to go live. I think in the maintenance shop, having somebody explaining the work that's being done on a coaster car, when it's dismantled or in the process of being rebuilt. I think the makes fascinating video. People that you can do that video and polish it up and have a nice edited piece. But I think going live, it just adds a lot more to it when everybody's seeing the work being done live.
Yeah, another thought that I had would, and tell me if you think this would appeal to enough people, because to me, I would have found this interesting long before I was involved with any parks. But strolling through a park while it's shut down for the off season, it's like I always had this deep curiosity about the abandonedness and the desolation of a park that normally has 10 or more thousand people in it. I think that would be kind of cool, but the only problem though is you got to have a plan. You can't stroll through and then it looks pretty much the same but empty for 10 minutes as you're trying to get somewhere, you know?
Yeah, and that's what it would look like. I've done just recording, footage just to see what that would look like, and it just looks like any other time in the park, just nobody's there. I think the thing that would be interesting though is showing when you're between seasons and you see, if you're in the spring, you see them bringing out all the coaster cars and
Right.
other ride vehicles and everything around the midway that way. Then you get to see the park in a way that you don't normally get to see when you're doing something like that. between the Halloween season and the Christmas season, and seeing the Christmas trees going up, and people rehearsing, the different cast rehearsing for the shows, and the people in the shops, swapping out the shelves, and all the Halloween stuff being boxed up, and here comes all the Christmas items. So I think those are the kind of things that would be interesting, and people would want to watch the live feed from start to finish when you're doing those kind of videos.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought of, which would be a really good PR tie-in too, just tell me this wouldn't work. You go live and you use the caption, "First sign of spring, Batman cars are being put on the track," or whatever. You wouldn't. Obviously, it probably takes like an hour or more. I have no idea to put all three trains on, but like just to show the crane lifting it up, and it's like, oh my gosh, this park opens in 2 months or whatever. I think that would almost get news articles too. I mean, I think that that's almost like a
Yeah, it would.
Groundhog Day kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, it is a long process. So make sure if you're going to watch those kind of videos, grab yourself a Snickers bar because it's a
Yeah,
while
well,
before
I'm
you
not
see it.
saying like, go through
Yeah.
the whole testing process live, but what I am saying is like if as the crane's lifting up, and putting the
Oh
train
yeah,
on the
yeah,
car, I mean, I'm saying like 5, 10 minutes maybe. And
yeah.
I mean, you could even like, have your sales message. Well, how do you feel about having a sales message in a live feed?
It's not a bad thing, especially if you have that opportunity to have two or three people helping you out, and you can, um, you know, break away and have like a 30-second spot or something, whether it's, season pass or promoting an upcoming event or something. I think that works. Like I said, it's we've talked about here tonight, Ryan. It's like TV, and if you watch TV, there's commercials. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Promoting different things, and that while you're switching to a different location, or just to take a break for a minute or
Yeah,
two.
I mean, to me, it's like I don't really get frustrated with advertising unless it's completely not relevant to me. If I see products or services that I'm interested in, that really doesn't annoy me. So if I'm going to bother to watch a live video of, them loading the coaster cars onto whatever, then I probably want to know, when do you open? How much does it cost to get in? How much is the season pass? Like, that sort of thing. You know, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's no downside to doing that, but you got to have a more than one person crew to be able to pull that off effectively.
Yeah. So the one thing that I've noticed is, with a lot of YouTubers and stuff, they'll go live and they'll kind of just sit around for 10 minutes as they, people join in to watch live. How do you strike that balance where you have enough time where people will actually be on there, so when you start talking or you start giving the tour or whatever, there's enough people to justify, but at the same time, people aren't just like, okay, I'm bored of waiting and then turning it off.
I think you want to have the magic number be 2 minutes. I think if you're making people wait much longer than that, they do kind of go elsewhere. So I think 2 minutes seems to be the magic number, because you do want to give enough time for that notification that to go out that you are live, and then they can see things are starting to come together just before it does go live.
Yeah, and I guess you could always use those 2 minutes to even kind of talk about what you're about to do. But even at that, and I want your thoughts on this too. To me, I almost feel like there'd be another balance there in terms of you can make it so it's not just staring at a wall or a splash screen or something like that for 2 minutes, and you can talk about, we're about to go through this haunted house, this is the theme, so on, so on. But at the same time, if people join a minute in, they might feel like they're missing something. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Right. They could, but I think they're going to tune in for the main event, which would be the tour through the haunted house. So I don't think there's going to be too much of that. The other thing you can do beforehand, those 2 minutes or whatever you're going, is as people start to have questions, that you can respond back, and just let people know what's about to happen, answer people's questions. If you have a second person while you're doing the live feed, that second person should be responding to the different questions that people have, and just engaging with those that are making
And
comments.
you're talking about engaging with them over the chat, right?
The chat, correct? Yeah. So like if you're on Instagram, and those questions and that are popping up, if you're a one man band, you're focused on the shot. You can't really go and look at the comments or respond at that time. But if you have a second person with you that's got that feed up, they can go in and respond, and let people know what they're seeing or answer any of those questions that they may have, and that really helps with the engagement as well too, to have that second person there to do that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And even if you could have an operation like that, like if you were very serious about the live broadcasting, I mentioned strolling through a park while it's closed for the season. If you could have somebody that's engaging, that might be a dynamic changer where it's like, whoa, what are they doing to that building? That looks like it's been painted. How do they fix this? That kind of stuff. I think that could change a dynamic, don't you? Like that would.
It does.
I mean, I feel like that would kind of fix the problem with we're walking through and it's taking a while to get from one destination to the next because for you it's a 2 minute walk, for them it's a 2 hour wait. It's the way that I see it.
Yeah, it definitely is like that, but it's one of those things that for the most part, when you look around the attractions industry, there's not large teams. It's a one man band or one woman band for the most part. So in those situations, you're just really trying to tell the story, when you're up by yourself. But if you do have that extra hand, certainly have them available to help answer some of those questions and just really enhance that engagement.
Yeah, and that comes down to like drawing a plan too. If you want to show two or three rides that, especially like I think flat rides are particularly interesting in the off season because often like they're completely gone in some cases. Just because of the nature of the rehab process. That's something people would be interested in seeing. So if you can find three
Yeah.
rides that are right next to each other, you can make this happen. But if one is on one side of the park and the other's on the other side of the park, and then the third one's in the water park, obviously that you're going to lose everybody by the time you hit the water park.
Yeah. And if you have construction, like, you're putting in a new ride, if you have one of your maintenance guys that would want to go on, the camera and talk about, what's happening, that's gold. Like I said, it's TV. It's like, you had your feature on one of the news stations where they're going around and kind of detailing what's happening. And anyone that's interested in your park, they're going to love that. They're curious. They want to see what's going on. I don't know how often, you see it out there, but, you know, on all park, channels across the industry, you know, people are always wanting to see more. They're always, wondering, why aren't you showing this? Why aren't you showing us that? They're curious. They get restless during the winter. You got to feed them. So this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, I equate park social media in a lot of cases to almost like souvenirs from vacation where it's the winter and it's sad and it's boring and you've got school and work and whatever, and the social media kind of reminds you of a simpler, happier time just that previous summer,
It does.
and so the same goes with that keychain you bought in Florida or whatever. I don't know, I don't carry keys, my car's on an app. So all right. So Don, do you have any final words of advice about going live? Any final thoughts?
Just, I think just give it a shot. If you're working in the attractions industry and, find something that you feel your audience would be interested in, whether it's, again, a cooking demonstration with your culinary team, off-season maintenance, new capital announcements. Give it a shot, and I think you'll be happy that you did.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Don, I guess this is the point in the show where we a plug to follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. Make sure that you look for us on YouTube. If you're not watching us on YouTube right now, that is. And we can be found on all your favorite podcast apps: Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever. You know the routine, all right? Just search for the Attractions Group podcast.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, we're growing. We're up to 130 something followers. The last time I looked, I think it was last night. I looked 130 plus followers now. So we're growing that Twitter
We
account.
we are. We're doing very well, and um, yeah, we'll give away more stuff, right? I mean, it's your stuff, so I can't really say on that behalf, but you know.
No, we will. We
Awesome.
will.
Well, Don, we haven't done this in a while, but guess what it's time for? Yes, it's pick six time. Don, it's been a couple weeks since we had pick six. Take story number one, please.
Yeah, I love this segment. I know a number of our fans have been listening to our podcast do too. But Ryan, recently there's been some stories out there the last couple of weeks about the new iPhone. 14 that when guests have been riding roller coasters because the technology is so good where it's supposed to detect if you've been in like a crash or whatever. It's kind of alerting the 911 calls that something's going on there. So you've heard about this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I happen to, just for the sake of sampling, have an iPhone 14, um, that's really just my phone. Yeah, so the it uses crash detection. It has crash detection, and what's funny is that a bunch of tech YouTubers were trying to set it off. They were getting junk cars and crashing them into each other and stuff, and it wasn't doing it. So people thought it was underperforming. Reached out to Apple. Apple said, "Well, there's I think there was like six different factors that did it." So obviously the gyroscope, the pressure sensor from the airbags to being deployed. It has to know that you were in motion, then all of a sudden stopped. If it's connected to Bluetooth or CarPlay, it'll take particular attention. So it has a bunch of stuff to prevent false positives. How these roller coasters are getting past it, I don't know. Um, but all I know is that my girlfriend was afraid to ride the bumper cars last night because she was afraid of setting it off. You don't need to be
Well,
afraid. It sounds like a bigger problem than it is. It's been like 10 people out of all the thousands upon thousands that have had this phone at that one park at this time.
now you say that's 10 people, but that's 10 calls that have to be received and everything, and they have to deal with that. So, it adds
No,
up.
no, I agree.
If you're open on that.
I'm not advocating for wasting, public resources or anything like that, but I'm saying, uh, first of all, if you might want to consider putting your phone in airplane mode, although I'm not sure if it'll bypass that or not. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it might bypass that. But you can always shut it off when you get in line, leave it with a non-rider, put it in a locker. If you have an Apple Watch,
Exactly.
it will alert you on the Apple Watch that it's detected a crash, and you can dismiss it from there too. So we became a tech podcast real quick, Don. Did you notice that?
We did. We did.
Other than that, I really enjoy my iPhone 14 Pro. Had a couple issues with the battery and stuff, and then they did a couple software updates, and now I really like it. So go get it and don't get in a crash
How
because I
about
don't want you to call
camera?
911.
Do you liking
The
the camera?
camera's really, really good on it. And it's got this mode where it acts like a gimbal. So it uses the wide angle camera in 4K, but crops it down to 2K and it adjusts for it. I think they call it sport mode or something. So you can walk around. Now you have to have a lot of light for it. That's the downside. So you can't use it during like Halloween time and stuff. But yeah, I like that. I like the little dynamic island and stuff. It's pretty fun. It's the future of whatever we're doing. Okay, well, enough about iPhones. Let's talk about Android now. No. Story number two. So I am really excited about this. The Serengeti Flyer at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is an S&S Scream and Swing. So this one is going to be the largest ride of its type. It's going to be 10 rows per guest, total of 4 rows, so 40 riders per cycle, with a total height of 135 feet at its peak. Um, these rides are so underrated. I think they are so fun, and the bigger they are, the better they are. Have you been on many of these? I know there's one at Dollywood, so you've probably ridden one between train rides.
Yeah, exactly. It was between train rides, and as a matter of fact. But no, like you said, they are so much fun. You talked about 130 feet with this one. What I really like about it too is capacity. 40 riders per cycle.
Hmm.
That's great. So your wait time, it's going to be popular, but your wait time isn't going to be super long because it is high capacity. I think it's a perfect fit for that park. Looking forward to getting down there
Right.
and experiencing this next year.
Yeah, that and Iron Gwazi. That's two new rides that neither of us have been on down there. That's super exciting. But yeah, I love the noise the thing makes because it sounds so industrial with the air pressure and stuff. So anyway, kudos to Busch Gardens Tampa. It looks like they've got most of the ride built already, except for the actual swinging portion. And kudos to S&S for pushing the envelope again. All right.
All right, Ryan, there's a park in Lubbock, Texas, called Joyland, and it was um, announced that it was going to be the last season for it. It had been around for 50 years. It was going to go up on the auction block for the land, but there's some hope that maybe the park can continue. Some offers have come in, so I think for that community, this is good news.
I completely agree. And, for you or I to sit here and say, like, it's probably the best business decision for it to close and stuff and look at it matter of fact really kind of dismisses the fact that any park that's in a community is really owned by the community and they lose something big. Everything, you got like Coney Out Lake Park, which was supposed to go bankrupt and then didn't, and then had a tax levy, and then the people rallied behind it and stuff, and all sorts of, even locally, LaSwordsville Lake. LaSwordsville Lake closed in the late '90s and then reopened in one year in 2002, and then closed again, and now it's a public park that has some ride remnants, but it's always really sad. There's always a lot of memories wrapped up in those places, and you'll always have the memories, but it's always great to go back and walk through them. Don, what's your favorite defunct park
If somebody can
that
save
you've
it,
been to?
my favorite
Yeah.
defunct park. That oh my gosh, maybe Idora Park,
Oh, really?
that was up north in Ohio. Yeah, I mean, I had so much fun there. The Idora Wildcat was one of the best wooden coasters I'd ever been on. So I think that park, just because there's so many memories that I had of it, going there in the '80s. So it's like outside of Youngstown is where that park was located. But that'd be the one that comes to mind right off the bat, Ryan, is Idora, just because I love the Wildcat roller coaster. It was your typical carnival type food. Back then in the day, that's what everybody
Right.
had. With pizza and chicken tenders and that kind of thing. But it was just fun. It was just a fun atmosphere and local community. And you saw people working there that on the different rides that that's what they did. They worked there
Hmm.
20, 30, 40, 50 years, and it just was a special place. So that's the one I probably miss the most.
Yeah, I mean, for
What about
me, I
you?
would say it's LaSwordsville Lake, but Americana, as you know, and I've been to several parks now that are, defunct. But oftentimes, when you don't have those memories and stuff, you go there and you hear it closes in a couple years, and you kind of get it. But that one was when I was little. We were an Americana family, so you were either Americana family or a Kings Island family. For the first couple of years, we were an Americana family because it was cheaper. And so my first roller coaster was there. It was a Little Dipper. I don't remember who manufactured it, but it's those little ovals, kind of similar to the Miller coasters that they have nowadays. My first big coaster was their Galaxy coaster, which was they call it the Serpent now, but it was like the slithering snake or something similar. It's up in Michigan nowadays. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parks, and I actually did get to visit in 2002, and I got to ride their all their flat rides and stuff, and got to ride the Wild Eagle, which I wasn't tall enough for when I was little. So yeah, if I could bring back that park, I would. That park had enough speed bumps to really make a California highway, but um, I'm saying like the park itself was fine, but I'm saying like it went bankrupt. Jerry Couch from Couch's RVs bought it with the intention of making a campground slash RV place slash amusement park. He hired a certain company to come in and run it for him. They stole every dollar from it one day and just left in the middle of the night. All this stuff is public record, by the way. so yeah, that's my favorite. Anyway, so enough about
Yeah,
defunct.
I have a lot of memories of that park too, Ryan. In the '70s, late '60s, '70s. Swordsville Lake, then Americana, what it became, but also Fantasy Farm right
I
next
did go
to
to
it.
Fantasy Farm when I was in
So I'm
preschool. I was in preschool.
yeah, so I'm 4 or 5 years old. Fantasy Farm was a every couple weekends in the summer we would go there, and so yeah, a lot of memories at those places. The parks go away, but the memories never do.
Yeah, that's true. They can't take that away from you. Now, for those of you who don't know, interesting story. Fantasy Farm was directly next door to Americana. The guy that, without going into too much detail about the history, although I'm just about to, the guy that owned Americana sold it, signed an agreement not to open a park within like 100 miles. I'm just recalling the story off the top of my head. And then immediately had his son-in-law incorporate the park next door on the property he still owned and made Fantasy Farm. And Fantasy Farm probably lasted about 40 years, right? It was like the
Oh, it was around,
like
yeah, a long time.
50s or so until like the early 90s, you know. But that was
Yeah,
less of
yeah.
a
I mean, it was
that
around a
was
long
more of
time,
like a
and
playground. I remember there being peacocks there. I definitely remember that. And I remember there being playground. They had a tilt-a-whirl because that was at Cincinnati Coney Island for a while. So they did have
yeah,
rides.
Tilt a Whirl. They had like a turnpike cars. There were old fashioned cars on there, not the kind of cars that that you see now with the antique autos and those kind of rides, um, but yeah, they had that ride. They had like a train track, but it was like you pedal and go around the track. So I remember all those kind of things. There was also a hole in the fence between the two parks, and if you knew where that hole was, you could go back and forth to both parks.
Why didn't you tell me this like 25 years ago when I could have used that information, Don? Eh,
Oh, I know it was 1969, 70 range or whatever. My cousin found a hole in the fence, and we were
oh,
enjoying both
you should
parks.
have let all the peacocks and stuff into Americana and really shown them. All right, Don, you are bumming me out with all this nostalgia and stuff, but I'm about to give you some happy news because our friends at Skyline Attractions have finally, at least kind of, sold one of their Pescetti Bowl coasters, as they call it. Now, this is going to be a ride that is more of an art installation. It's called the Brake Run Helix. They're working in collaboration with E.J. Hill. It's going to open October 30th at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. The total length of the coaster is going to be 260 feet. It will be on display for a limited 2-year run, so make sure you make it out there to check it out. And it will actually have one rider per hour. That's going to be sort of the that's going to be part of the attraction. Is they'll pick one person in the audience, I believe, or in the crowd there to ride it. And it's stylized. So the whole point of this art project is to pay tribute to the backyard coasters all around the world. So I think that's so cool. Would you go see this, Don?
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty cool. There's a lot going on in that 200 something feet.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is an art installation, but especially if you're up in that area anyway and you're interested in, and probably what will be one of the next big things as far as like little kitty and family coasters are concerned. If you want to check out what the track looks like and just see what it looks like when it runs, that'll be a great thing. Um, I think that when we were talking to Jeff Pike, we had him on the podcast earlier, and I think he mentioned that the train that's on it, which is a one-car train, is not going to be a terribly accurate representation of what the cars and trains are going to look like for actual installations. This one's specialized to look like the backyard coasters, but you can see the track. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it looks really good. Excited to
Yeah.
see it.
All right. Number 5.
Number 5. All right. Uh, Social media post. The bloggers that hundreds of them out in the Orlando area. They've been reporting that there's new signage going on around the Tron project at Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom. So it's kind of encouraging that we're starting to see some new developments here. This ride has been one of the most anticipated now for a few years. So we're still not quite there when it's going to open. Right now, it looks like what, March, April, maybe
They said
2023. Ryan, we could see this.
D23, I believe they said spring of 23 is when they plan to open it. But it's getting close. I mean, I've seen a bunch of YouTubers and stuff film like the light show on the roof and all. I mean, that's just finishing touches at that point. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's gonna be really
So it's going
exciting.
to be phenomenal once it opens. But it's been a long time, and obviously, when we had the pandemic and that, it pushed a lot of things back. But uh, looks like everything's taking shape there now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Disney. I can only imagine how much money they lost every day by not having those park gates open. And they were closed for not Disney World, not terribly long. Disneyland was closed for months. But I remember with Tron, they actually sealed up the entrance where the track goes into the indoor section. And this was after they reopened, so they had some sort of delay, or it probably wasn't really supply chain. It was more like we're not going to put $1 million a month into construction, or yeah, probably the number's much bigger than that. But yeah, it's coming in the spring, so book your vacations now. All right,
And Ryan, I've had one problem with the Tron
what's that?
project since it was announced and construction started. Do you know what it is? Can you guess?
That there's probably no Bucky's that close to it. Oh,
No. The construction of Tron shut down the Walt Disney World Railroad. That's one of my favorite
mm,
attractions there. Love riding it every time I would go. And it just always made me sad when I would go and I would see the Tron construction, but also that the train was closed because of that. So looking forward to being able to experience both of them, hopefully in the spring of
yeah.
2023.
And I always feel. I mean, Disney does a really good job of this sort of thing, but I kind of felt bad for the people that saved their whole lives and stuff to go to Disney, and then they want to take that one family photo at the front of the park, and like the train station was covered by a facade. I mean, they made it look good, but I still kind of felt bad for them. But I would say that that was definitely offset by their incredible 50th celebration. I have heard nothing but incredibly positive things. That runs through March, I think now, end of March 30th, I want to
It
say.
does.
So don't quote me on that. All right. So let's keep talking about Disney. So I've never been to Disneyland. I want to go, but I haven't been yet. But Disneyland is actually bringing back in-person tours. This is the return of the in-person tours after COVID. So it's been a couple years since they've had it. So tours are offered once or twice per day, depending on the demand, and the capacity is 20 people per tour. Um, so what kind of stuff do the tours consist of? Is it? I know that they don't show you backstage areas, do they?
They do on some, like some of the attractions. Some of them they do, but I know like at Walt Disney World they had the behind the scenes train
Yeah.
tour. So those are the kind of different experiences that you have. And uh, from the people that I have spoken to that have done a number of these different tours between Walt Disney World in Orlando and down at Disney, or over at
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland out on the West Coast, that they're worth every penny that is involved there. It gives you a chance to see the Disney parks in a way that you normally can't. Just when you're there during normal park operating hours, they really do it up right. So if you have a chance to book a tour at Disneyland, certainly do it. And Ryan, we got to find a way to get you out there because that is a can't miss park. You got to do
I really
Disneyland.
want to do the trio of Disneyland, Magic Mountain, and Knott's Berry Farm because they're all Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm are like within spitting distance of each other. I know that Magic Mountain's a little bit out of the way, but those are three goal parks for mine. They're bucket list parks for me that I really want to go to.
Yeah, when you go to Disney World down in Orlando, I mean, you drive off the road and these long winding
Hmm.
roads, and you got the water and everything to get to it. And then the first time I went to Disneyland was in 2003. I was out in Anaheim for the Stanley Cup final, helping out the Anaheim Mighty Ducks at the time when they were playing the New Jersey Devils in the Stanley Cup finals. And my hotel, I walked across the street and there's the ESPN zone and there's other kind of places, but you just walk a few more feet and there's the front gate to get into
Right.
Disneyland. So to me, I wasn't expecting it to be like all wedged in like that, but just a beautiful park, and to be able to go to Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean and compare those rides to the ones at Magic Kingdom. Um, it's really it's really something that you have to do. You have to do, Ryan.
What do you prefer, Disneyland or Walt Disney World, or is it a little bit of give and take?
Walt
Walt
Disney
Disney
World.
World.
Yeah, that's like home to me. I mean, I've made over probably 50 visits to the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, and a few appearances, a few visits over to the Animal Kingdom. But that's like a second home park to me is the one in Orlando. So that's the first one I went to. Spent so much time
Hmm.
there. So that's the one I'm going to pick. But I think if I'd maybe had visit both of them around the same time, I might have a different
Yeah, I
opinion.
mean, so I was talking to a friend of mine that visits both regularly, and I said, I understand that Disney World has more stuff. A lot of people say the Disneyland stuff is better, and I said, which one do you prefer? She said Disneyland, and I said, well, why do you choose Disneyland? And she said, because when I walk in those gates, I can think to myself, Walt was here. This is Walt's vision, and I kind of respect
Yes.
that. I understand that. The only problem, first of all, my attraction to Walt Disney World, just from an outsider looking in, is the fact that you're in the parks and you can't see anything besides the parks. I think that's so cool how isolated they are and how you're in their bubble and you're not getting out. But to me, it's like we are so far from the vision that Walt Disney had or would have had or whatever, that I don't think that you can necessarily say that Disneyland is more in line with Walt's vision or anything, because who knows what he would have thought 50 years after his death about the technology that we have. Um, I'm sure that he was really weird about money, so I don't think he would like Genie Plus and stuff, although I think that the demand is there for it. I think the people wanted that, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I to me it's like it's so far from the vision, and maybe I would feel differently if I actually went there. But the fact that like if you're going to Magic Kingdom, you don't just drive past Magic Kingdom. There's no doing that. You're going to Walt Disney World, and then you can drive past Magic Kingdom, and even at that, you can't see it. You know?
No, and one of the things about that I noticed when I went to Disneyland the first time after being at Walt Disney World several times is that you can see the different things where getting that opportunity to do it a second time, they made those
Yes.
improvements. So whether that was whether it was midways, queue lines, buildings, Fantasmic, show that is Hollywood Studios, very popular show, but great, you know the seating area, and that you look at that, and then you go to Disneyland and there is no seat. You're sitting on the ground, on a little hillside trying to watch it there. So big differences between the two in that respect. But you just see where they had an opportunity to correct some things that if they had to do it again or weren't landlocked, that they could
Exactly.
do.
And by the way, I guess I'll go ahead and kick the point after on the pick six and mention that Fantasmic is coming back to Walt Disney World. They said in November, right? But they didn't clarify a date yet. How
Did not clarify a date
that
yet.
show is what can you say? It's so perfect in so
It's
many ways.
amazing.
So perfect. You know, and people line up an hour. There, I don't know if they'll start doing this right off the bat, but I remember when they were doing two of those a night, and from what I understand, it costs like tens of thousands of dollars to put on that show each time. They're doing two of them during the summer. It's so cool.
Yeah, they were they had to wait till it got a little bit dark, so it was around 8:30 or whatever at night would be the first run, and then they'd come back and have another one at like 10. Uh, but that was a place, you wanted to get a good seat, so you got in there early, 90 minutes or so beforehand, and uh, but just so well done. I mean, the pyro, you got pyro, you
Pyro,
got
water screens, a freaking
animatronic,
ship, a
water
ship,
screen,
a ship with all the
yeah,
characters.
lasers, everything. Yeah, everything. I mean, it's just that's a show that you talk about memories. If you just seen it once, you're going to remember that. 30, 40, 50 years from now, you remember that show. It's that good.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of stinks about it. Disney's had a little trouble with like the lagoon shows at Epcot. It seems like they've been ever since Illuminations, they've been having a little trouble finding the one that sticks. But on the contrary, like if you do Phantasmic, and the Phantasmic, like I said, it costs tens of thousands of dollars. You're stuck with it because you can't just do that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because the people that see it are going to want to come back in 10 years and see it again. I guess to be a local would be weird there because like they do festivals and stuff, but like they don't get annual shows like we do. Living in a seasonal environment because they've got
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast that's been around since for 25 years now, and all that stuff. But all right, well, you have any final thoughts for our lovely and loyal fans?
Covered a lot of ground tonight. It's hard to believe, Ryan. Is it just me, or is the fall just flying
I
by?
can't believe we got 2 weekends left in October at this point.
I know. I know. And then we'll start talking about all the different parks, what they're doing for the winter with their different events. That'll be fun for us to talk about. We keep talking about having John Keeter, who has done a coffee table book on the history of Kings Island. I keep talking about having him on. That'll happen in November for us. We got Tom Rebbe, Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Incorporated. He will be on our show soon. So we've got a lot of great guests coming up. And, for those that listen to this podcast and others, we appreciate the interest and the support. And if you ever have any show ideas for us, go ahead and tweet at us at
Attractions
give us
underscore GRP.
why did you put an underscore in that when you created
Because
that?
I had no other option. It could be Attractions GRP 2365 or something, but that's why I put the underscore in there. I mean,
Okay.
I would have
Okay.
chosen something better. I would have paid good money to have just Attractions Group Podcast as our handle, but that's not the way the world works. Okay, I think we've said enough now. All right, well, thank you, everybody. We
We
will
have.
we'll see you next week. We'll have another excellent episode. And again, if you have any show ideas, feel free to tweet us at attractions underscore GRP. Make sure you throw in that underscore. Don loves it.